Western culture is overwrought, is overtaken with the idea of love. There's even a song saying, all you need is love. Let's examine what the love is. What is love? So there really are two types of love. What we've learned previously in Tanya, a type of love, is a love that comes from an appreciation of having an awareness of your beloved. So what we learn in Tanya is an awareness of your ultimate beloved is God, whether you know that or not. But using a human love as a metaphor, you meet somebody, you get to know them, you fall in love with them. How did that work? Sometimes it'd be love at first sight. What does that mean? Well, I think both are really the same. It's just a quicker process. All I needed to know is the way she looked and the way she smiled, right? Or as opposed to, she says, all I needed to know about him is just, after many conversations and interactions, exchanges, wow. So I got to know him. So what got to know means it has to do with the mind. Mind appreciates this person, wants this person in their lives, wants to connect. That's what love is, a connection, a bond. And therefore, there will be a yearning for that bond if there's any type of separation. Separation because you're not married, separation because you're away from each other for whatever reason. So there's the desire to bond, to be connected. Now, that can be done, of course, through simply phone call, right? A bond doesn't mean you have to be physically together. Love doesn't have to only express itself in physicality, actually, because love really is not a physical thing. It's expressed in the physical. Could be a hug to your child. That's an expression of it, absolutely. But that's the expression of the love. Then there's the love itself, the very love itself. So it's a yearning for that attachment, to be connected, but it's based on, and this is what's important, of an appreciation. An appreciation is not coming from the heart, it's coming from the mind. Hence, when you are kind of disconnected from your beloved, but because there is something between the two of you, and if you want to be a victim and you want to, and you like, you know, being a downer, so yeah, you'll be a victim and you'll feel lousy. And what a rotten good for nothing. She said, did, whatever, right? And you're going to think negative about your beloved. But if you're not that way and you choose not to be negative and you choose to want to be connected, so then you're going to think something, what are you going to do? Something between you. So in order to to create the bond, to feel the desire for an attachment, you're going to think about the goodness of that person. And thinking about the goodness of that person will overcome any negativity, and you'll feel a bond and an attachment to them. This is the kind of love that we've spoken of uh, towards God, which is what we learn from chapters 9 through 17. First kind of love. Welcome to Tanya today. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zurich and Kadesh in Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. We begin today, chapter 19, continuing from chapter 18, which is a new path in becoming the Beinoni. Beinoni, someone who has mastery over themselves, not to master others, master ourselves, and we master over the expressions of the soul, which are called garments, as garments express us. So garments of the soul are our actions, our words of communication, and our willful meditated thought, that we willfully choose to think something, as opposed to something that comes that we can't control in our minds. So that's the Beinoni. So this second mode of divine service is not coming, if you will, from the mind, feeding the heart. So you know about the greatness of God, you know about your relationship with God, you know about God as creator, and that brings to your heart, and that brings you to act towards God and to what you're created and what God needs from you. Here we're speaking about the hidden love in the soul. So it's not coming from, an appreciation or deep meditation, and that brings an awareness and so on. It's coming from tapping into something that's already there. My understanding of the ways of God is not there until I bring it into my head, right? My appreciation of God is not in my head until I think about it, right? And learn about it, as we're learning here. This is not about that. It's about tapping into something that's already there. That's called the neshama, the soul. The soul is, being a part of God. So we've learned that this soul that we're talking about comes from the chachma of the divine order of things. Chachma, the power of nullity, the power of, what? Source of intelligence, but this chachma is beyond intelligence. And therefore it is a vehicle, it's a vessel, a container for the Ein Sof, the infinite of God, and illuminates the individual, particularly when it comes to a question of faith, and therefore martyrdom, to maintain our faith. So we explained about the nature, so not the nature, the root source of this soul, which defines the Jewish soul and defines the Jewishness of the Jew, as we explained at great length, and also that this comes as an inheritance from the patriarchs, meaning that they were so lofty in their divine service that God gave them the merit that their descendants would be given this soul from God. Today we're going to learn about what's the nature of this love. It's got a different nature, not the nature of what we learned chapters 9 through 17 of through the awareness of the greatness of God that leads to a feeling, even if it's only an intellectual love, an understanding heart merely, but it's based on the mind appreciating your relationship with God, God is creator and the like. Here, it's something different. So to elucidate this hidden love, we need to clarify the verse that's brought in Mishle, in Proverbs, that the soul, neshama of man, is the candle of God. So we have a metaphor. We always talk in metaphors. Because metaphors bring out an ethereal, abstract, spiritual idea, right, of this kind of love. So what's the nature of a flame of a candle? It's unique. It always flickers upwards, right? The flame intrinsically seeks to be a part of its source above, which is the universal element of fire, the sublunar sphere, as explained in the Eitz Chaim. There are four elements in creation. Earth is the heaviest, right? It's the physically the lowest. Then you have water, which is the next level. Then you have higher than that is air. But air, even though it's higher than water and earth, um, it kind of stays stagnant. I mean, of course, air can move because of a wind, and it does move, but in a sense, it's moving laterally. Then you have fire, it's the highest, because it's not moving laterally, it's moving upwards, right? In that a constant upward, that represents the desire, right? It's a metaphor, and that's what's important to appreciate what's the analog over here. That it constantly seeking to be subsumed in its source above. And that's why it flickers upwards, right? And you can look at the flame is like almost wants to leave the wick. Like it's on the wick. It's like flickering. It wants to escape the wick. The wick is keeping it down, right? Which will be a metaphor we're going to use later, but not right now. In this manner here, we just want to use it as a metaphor to understand that it wants to be extinguished from its own existence as a flame and to be subsumed and lose its identity in its source. Again, that's the metaphor. Let's understand. Everything in the physical world, the way God creates it. Now, if it were to have, if you would call it a mind, um, sorry, 1 second. Let's say they can't hear. Should be working. I'll check your own volume, maybe if it's not working. Everything wants to be what it is. What's the proof? Wants. How do you say about, how do you say about, you know, how do you say about this mouse? It wants to be a mouse. Doesn't want to be a cat. It wants to be a mouse. What does that mean? Not that it has an understanding or it has a desire, but in a sense, it, in a spiritual sense, it does. But meaning everything wants to be what it is. It's only if an external force does something to it, will it become something else, right? So if you take matter and you give it enough pressure, it'll turn into energy. Does it want to be energy? No, it's only because an external force made it into energy. If you take energy and then you also put an external force upon it, you can change it into matter. The point being over here, everything wants to be what it is, except for the flame. The flame, when you look at it, right, its desire, its nature is to go upwards and to flicker out of existence. It's only the wick that's holding it down, as we mentioned. Because the flame of the candle wants to be reunited with its source. This is the metaphor of the Jewish soul and the love that we're talking about over here. This level of the soul's love is that it wants to be reunited with its source in the divine above. That's its natural desire. It wants to separate itself and depart from the body. The soul doesn't want to be part of the body, right? And wants to be subsumed in its source. What's its source? The fountainhead of life, God himself. That's what the soul wants. What happens when it does that? It negates itself and becomes nothing. Not it becomes a greater thing. Not like, I'll parcel myself up with bombs on my body and take other people, God forbid, and take other people's lives with me so I can get subsumed in life, in the afterlife. No, that's a greater form of life. That's like, I'll lose my identity here to get a greater identity over there, right? And get more in life. That's not the concept here. Here, the soul being in a body has an identity. You're a person. When the soul is part of God, it has no own identity. It is now subsumed in its source. That's its desire. That's its nature, which means, nature here means it's not something that we understand. It doesn't make sense. Again, everything in the physical world wants to exist as is. Even humans want to exist as is. We're lazy. We want to change? No. Just want to be. Let me be, right? Let it be. That's the human existence, not the flame of the candle. It's a metaphor to teach us that the soul that we're talking about doesn't want to let it be. It just wants to be united with its source. Why is that? Why does it want that? Why is it that its nature? Well, we explained. Because the root source of the Jewish soul is Chachma. Chachma is not intelligence. It's the source of intelligence, but it's beyond intelligence, right? It is the quest and the longing for the soul to be united with its source, right? Which is the hidden love. It's not a logical thing. Just like Chachma, is a source of logic, but it itself is not logic at all. It is just a vehicle for a vessel for the infinite of God to maintain within it. So it's something beyond reason, beyond logic. It wants it just because that's its nature, the way God made it. This is not metaphorically like a child who goes into a mall with a parent, a 3-year-old child, and there's a lot of people walking through, and the child is clinging to their parent, right? Why are they clinging? There's a reason for it. You know why? Not because they want to be subsumed in their parents, because they're afraid they might get lost. They might get lost in the jungle of the mall with so many people there. So they cling to their parents. This is not about clinging to God because I'm afraid, right? I'm afraid. No, this is clinging to God because the nature of the soul is that it's a part of God and it just wants to be subsumed in God. Why? Just because. But it's losing its identity of doing that. It's not like it's becoming self-fulfilled because the self is being lost in being united and subsumed in its source. So why does it want it? There's no reason. Just like Chachma is beyond reason, there's not a reason for it. That's its nature. That's the way God made it. Right? As opposed to the love that we learned previously. So that's the nature of this love. It just wants to be connected because it is connected, because it is a part of the divine. That's why it wants it. Let me give you in human terms maybe on how we can appreciate this. Okay, it's not here in the Tanya, but appreciate the previous kind of love in human terms is, as we explained, you get to know a person. To get to know someone is to love them. I mean, it could be the opposite, obviously, too, because they're not nice people, but a wonderful, good person, right? A wonderful, good person. How do you get to love them? If I told you that David is a wonderful, good person, my good friend David here, he's a wonderful, good person. Love him. Would you love him? No. Why not? Because you don't know him. I know him. So I know he's a wonderful, good person. So therefore I can love him. You can't because you don't know him. Meaning it's all predicated on what you know, right? Your awareness of the individual, and the deeper the awareness is, the deeper the love will be. But it's all based on something. It's all based on understanding the person, knowing the person. Therefore, you can have a deep connection and relationship with that person. That's the first kind of love of God. By knowing God, the greatness of God, you can love him. That was chapters 9 through 17. But here, this is not knowing God, right? This is the nature of the soul, is that it just wants to be attached to God. So how do you understand that in human terms? So you love your spouse because you got to know them. But after you get married, you should love your spouse, not just because of that. You gotta come to the next level in your relationship with your spouse. You know why you love them? Why? Because it's your spouse, period. That doesn't make sense. Just because she's my spouse, I love her? Yes. Because really, you're two halves of one soul that reunited. Just like we're reunited and reconnected with God, we're two halves of one soul. For that alone, that awareness is that you are connected soulfully. Connected soulfully is not through an awareness. It's through the very fact that you are connected soulfully. So I love you because Kotzker said, if I am me and you are you, then I'm not me and you're not you. But if you are me and I am you, then I am me and you are you. I don't know if you got that. I'm not going to repeat it. Another way is you love a fellow Jew. Why? Because you appreciate them. Yeah. But then there's another level because they are me, because we share the same soul. Is that logical? No. Is it reasonable? No, not reasonable at all. And therefore, Madoff, I would put tefillin on him if he were alive, if I had the opportunity, even though he did horrific, terrible things. I'm still connected to him. He's my fellow Jew. And therefore, he's got a mitzvah, just like I have a tefillin. He has a mitzvah of tefillin. And therefore, I would connect him on that level. I wouldn't connect him on the level of the evil, obviously. I don't want to connect anybody on the level of evil. But that's not what defines him. Right? That's his actions. But who is he? Well, he's got a Jewish soul, and I'm connected to him because I've got a Jewish soul that is, right? Is that reasonable? Is that logical? No. And that's why for most people, this kind of love is not something part of their lives at all. Even in a relationship. That's why there's 50% divorce rate today. Why? Because I love you because I appreciate you. The moment I don't appreciate you, guess what? No, what happens? I don't love you anymore. I don't love you anymore. I don't appreciate you. Not only I don't appreciate you, I find you kind of disgusting. I don't love you. Bernie Madoff, you're disgusting. Absolutely. No question. His actions are disgusting. No question about it. There can still be a love. The love isn't here like a fiery passion of love over here, right? It's about a connection that is beyond reason. It's not reasonable at all. It just is. You can have that with your spouse. You can have that with your children. I love my child. Well, the child's a part of me, came from me. Yeah, but when they don't act the way you like them and they really act, terribly, I don't have anything to do with you. You're not reflecting me. You've got nothing of me. Well, they do. Core essence of the soul. Maybe they don't act like you. Maybe they don't believe like you. Maybe they're not kind and good like you, but you're still connected. An intrinsic connection that's beyond. That's what we're talking about over here. This is unique. This is unique. And it's not based like, Jews are connected because we have a common, many people say, oh, we have a common destiny. We have a common, victimhood for the last 2,000 years. And therefore we're brothers. Yeah, we're brothers just from another mother, right? No, 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 no. People will say that, right? You have that in other ethnic groups, right? That are like that. Hey, bro, right? It's not like this at all. There's nothing that compares to this because it's their culture that's bringing them together, right? It's their common history. Well, listen, my great grandfather, he was a slave, and so were your great grandfather was a slave. So we have a common, and therefore we're going to hate them because what they did to us, right? Black Panthers and the like. It's got nothing to do with soul. They might call them soul brothers, but it's got nothing to do with soul. It's got to do with common destiny, got common history, and common victimhood. Now, we Jews have got more victimhood than anybody, but it's got nothing to do with that. That's an outcome maybe that we have, and that can be perceived as what brings us together. And at times it does, no question. October 7th brought Jews together. But really what it expressed was their soul connection. That's what it really expressed, which that's really what we're talking about over here. That's really unique and does not exist amongst other peoples, other nations, other so-called soul brothers. And I don't say that, I'm not saying that, God forbid, in any derogatory form, but it's the fact. In this manner, it doesn't exist. That, folks, right, is Tanya today. I'm Rabbi Ron Fine, coming to you for Chabad Zurich Montreal.